Hello and welcome to our OceanCon Author Spotlight with author and illustrator Jerry Craft. My name is Ocaria DeMango and I am the Adult Program Coordinator here at Oceanside Library. I'm so excited to start this program off tonight and want to go over some general housekeeping before we begin. Thank you all for attending our program tonight. We ask that everyone please keep themselves muted for the duration of the program and cameras off so just the presenters have their cameras on. This helps with limiting distractions and a stronger bandwidth. During the program, please feel free to write your questions in the chat, and we will have some time later to ask Jerry some questions from the audience. We have had a wonderful virtual week of OceanCon. We couldn't meet in person for our third annual OceanCon this year, but we sure hit it out of the park, bringing you a week full of innovative, fun, and creative programs to all ages in our community. We learned how to make our own comic books, play Dungeons and Dragons, learn about George Lucas, and meet a panel of creative young women who are paving the way in graphic novels. We now end the week off just right with best-selling author Jerry Craft. How awesome is that? Our team of youth service and adult service librarians, as well as our marketing department, made this week happen. We thank you. Before I begin, I would like to thank our director, Chris Mara, and assistant director, Tony Iovino, for attending tonight and for their continued support. Without them and our supportive board of directors, we could not bring these innovative programs to our community. I would now like to introduce the team that I am proud to work with and made this program happen. Our head of teen services, Barbara Mikowski, and our youth services librarian, Gabriella Trinchetta. Take it away, Gabriella.
Thank you, Ocaria. All right, so now I am thrilled to have the opportunity to introduce you all to Jerry Craft. He is the author and illustrator of the Newbery award-winning graphic novel, New Kid. This critically acclaimed graphic novel also received the Coretta Scott King Award. The much anticipated companion to New Kid, called Class Act, was recently published at the beginning of October, and I'm sure everyone here is looking forward to reading that very soon. Jerry Craft is also the creator of award-winning comic strip Mama's Boyz. I know everyone is so excited to hear from our special guest tonight, so please everyone join me in welcoming Mr. Jerry Craft.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Sounds like you had a great week. So I am honored that you are having me kind of end it up for you. So this would be awesome. So I am going to show you kind of my full path, and then I'm going to do some drawing. I'm going to answer some questions. So anything that you want me to answer, I am more than happy to do so. So I'm going to start all the way back at the beginning, and I am sharing my screen, and hopefully you see this. And this wonderful piece of artwork is me drawing. This is my Spanish homework in the 7th grade. And you know, it was kind of interesting that I have always loved to draw. So, I mean, almost a compulsion. I just absolutely love it. So even back then, although I did pay attention in class, you know, anytime I got that much blank paper, I felt like it was a gift, and I would take out my pencil and ballpoint pen, and I would start drawing my favorite thing in the whole wide world, which is superheroes. So this is about the 7th grade or so. And then I started making my own comic books. And it was really interesting because I did not like to read. It literally was not until I was much older that I found that I could even enjoy reading. I mean, I kind of went from Dr. Seuss books to maybe Spider-Man to almost nothing for years and years and years. So in this book, this is also about 6th or 7th grade. And this is me actually drawing Iron Man and some Marvel guys as my own character. And this is a story about an archaeologist, and he goes and he's flying to Egypt, and he discovers this ancient pyramid, and there's lightning going in the background, crackling, and he's digging, and he hits something, goes, is it, could it be? And he uncovers this magic sword, and he holds it up, just as he gets struck by lightning, which releases this ancient cosmic energy, and he uses those new powers to fight crime. Now, here is one of the big things. My teachers always thought that comic books would rot your brain, so they were not fans. I think now with graphic novels, especially all thanks to Raina Telgemeier for really taking this middle grade graphic novel and just making, I mean, just what she has done has been absolutely amazing. So I thank her every chance I get. So when I was in 7th grade, my teachers, if they saw you reading comic books, they would confiscate them. But what they didn't realize was just how much good stuff came from it. So even writing about an archaeologist, I had to look up an archaeologist. There used to be these things called dictionaries. And I think the one I had was like it probably weighed more than me. And then I'd go through and I'd see the word, I'd look it up. I'd have to know how to spell it. But there was a lot of stuff that I learned from that, from making comic books. The other thing that was interesting is I always considered myself an artist. I never considered myself a writer until I was an adult. Yeah, so that was always kind of interesting. So this was what I loved to read, like The Amazing Spider-Man. And now when we're in high school, this is the stuff that I was forced to read. I remember a book like An American Tragedy, only to discover that the real tragedy was that it was 800 pages long. I still remember getting that cold feeling in my stomach and that little tear coming down. I'm like, how will I ever, ever read an 800-page book? It was literally as if my teacher told me that I had to climb Mount Everest. Like it was that depressing, that I had such a defeatist attitude that I would never be able to finish a book like that. Then there were other books, you know, like As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner, that for this young boy who was born in Harlem, grew up in Washington Heights, couldn't be further from my mind at all, from like my reality. Again, horrible. It wasn't until about 11th grade that I read Great Expectations, and I think that was as close to a mirror as I had ever seen in the book. And so what you have to understand is, especially as an African-American male, you know, any book that was a classic that had someone like me in it was not doing too well. You know, a lot of the classics that had African-American protagonists, um, you know, we're talking slavery, civil rights. If they were contemporary, you know, gangs or police brutality, something like that. So there was nothing at all that really interested me that I saw a book and I wanted to read it. Now, when I had sons, well, I still have them. I kept them. They're awesome. But with my sons, I tried very hard to make sure that they had a love of books that I never had. So we went from, you know, Dr. Seuss, you know, Fish Out of Water, Horton Hears a Who, to maybe like Captain Underpants. You know, now kids have Dogman. They went to Wimpy Kid, Diary of Wimpy Kid, and then maybe Percy Jackson and Harry Potter. So they had a really nice level that just grew with them. Again, not too many books with African-American characters. Now, not that those books on slavery and civil rights were not important, because they are, but to me, even a book like Diary of Wimpy Kid is important if your kid clutches that book and that's the book that he or she takes, and, you know, it's at bedtime and they're looking at it. Then you wake them up in the morning and they're reading it on the way to school or on the school bus or at the breakfast table. And then they come home and they want to, and that was the kind of thing that I've always wanted to do, but with African American protagonists, just to have them as regular kids. Because when I was younger, I had Fat Albert on TV, and everyone uh, watched Fat Albert. But that was 50 years ago, and it really hasn't been much since then. Um, I mean, Doc McStuffins, maybe, you know? So as I became a young adult, I ended up creating a comic strip called Mama's Boys. And this was a mom raising her two teenage sons, and they owned a bookstore. And I just had like fun stuff. You know, the kids here they're at a McDonald's or Burger King, and he says, whatever you do, do not order shake, because if you order shake at this particular restaurant, they will grab you and shake you. And but this is basically, you know, having fun. It was the kids played Xbox and ate pizza and, you know, worked at this bookstore, that kind of thing. And that has always, always, always been my goal. Now, I said once I had compiled a bunch of the Mama's Boy strips that I wanted to do a an anthology, a book, because again, there were not happy Black kids in books. Who knew? So I looked around, didn't see them, didn't see them, didn't see them. So I sent out, because I'm thinking if I noticed it, that someone else must have noticed it, and that the big publishers were waiting for something like this, and they would get, you know, my sample of Mama's Boys, and they'd look at it and they'd go, this is what we've been waiting for. This is going to revolutionize the publishing industry. Happy Black kids with humor. Who would have thought? So I sent it out, and I remember after a couple of weeks, I would get a letter in the mail before email. So letter in the mail, and I'd open it, and the first letter was a rejection letter. I'm like, you know, I sent her a bunch, not a problem. Wait another couple weeks, I get another one in the mail, and I look, and this time it was a rejection letter. I'm like, not a problem. They always say third time's a charm, right? I got that third letter, and I opened it, and finally this time it was also a rejection letter. So that's all I ever got was rejection, 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 rejection. So I went to the library. I got a book on how to self-publish. And in 1997, right, before Gabriella was born, probably, right, 1997, and I don't want to know if that's true or not. I published that book in the upper left corner, Mama's Boys as American as Sweet Potato Pie, and basically started selling it out of the trunk of my car, going to book fairs and schools, wherever. 10 years later, I did another Mama's Boys Homeschooling, and then I did another Mama's Boys The Big Picture. And then people started coming to me, African-American authors, and saying, hey, Mr. Kraft, I can't get published either. Can you help me publish my book? And so that's what I did. In 2007, I started my own publishing company, Mama's Boys Inc. And for the last 13 years or so, and even before then, I started helping other people publish their books. So you see, there's everything from Baby Boy, What Will You Be, to Please Don't Yell at We, Khalil's Way, A is for Anacostia, What's Below Your Tummy Tum, all books that help people to get published. And that's what I did for the longest. And then in 2014, I got an email one day asking me if I would like to illustrate a book for Scholastic. And it was called the 0 Degree Zombie Zone, which I did. So I did the illustrations for that. So all of that brings us to New Kid. So it was also around that time when I had started to have the idea. I always knew that I wanted to do a book loosely based on my life of wanting to be an artist and going to a predominantly white, predominantly wealthy private school. And having done the book for Scholastic and gone out, I remember going to the National Book Festival and meeting Raina Telgemeier and Gene Yang, who did American Born Chinese, and Kyle Baker. And I was like, wow, again, I had never seen that many kids so excited about books. And I said, one day, that's what I want to do. So I started working hard on New Kid. So as you see here, this is Jordan Banks in the middle. And these are his friends from on his blog. So Jordan wants nothing more than to be an artist and go to art school. His mom and dad don't want him to go to art school because the only term that they have ever heard that precedes the word artist is the word starving. So they are like, Jordan, you need to go to real school and get a real job. You cannot be doing comics or graphic novels because those aren't real books. I still hear people say that. So he goes to the prestigious Riverdale Academy Day School where he meets all these people. So where did I get the idea from? Okay, so a lot of it is actually based on my life. So for example, this is the house in Washington Heights where I was born and lived all of my young life. Um, and this is the house where Jordan Banks is. Now, again, what I wanted to do was dispel the whole notion of a single story narrative, meaning if you are an African American boy, you have to live in Compton or you have to live in the projects, and every day is just a chore. I grew up in the brownstone, which was very different from anything I'd ever really seen. We played stickball and touch football and rode bikes, and that was kind of the life that I wanted to portray for Jordan Banks. Now, here I am again. This is me graduating from 8th grade St. Matthew's Lutheran School in the Inwood section of Manhattan. So here you see that um, I am, like Jordan Banks, I am one of the smallest and the youngest kids in my entire class. And the whole grade consisted of about 25 kids, of which 22 were African American. So um, my hair was straighter. I could never get my hair in the cool afro like all my other friends had. My skin was lighter complexion. So, it was a very different, it was a little bit of a fish out of water, although I had a great time, great classmates. But, I thought that it was the makings of a really good fish out of water story, of not necessarily fitting in here with all the other kids who are African American. But when it came time to go to high school, if I thought I didn't fit in here, imagine how I felt when I went to a school in Riverdale, also like Jordan Banks. And now instead of 25 kids in the class, of which 22 are African American, now there are 110 kids in my 9th grade class, of which 10 are African American. And of those 10, maybe half had been in Fieldston, um, that system their whole lives. So we had absolutely nothing in common. And that's where I got the character of Maury from. So Jordan and Maury, both African American, everyone thinks, oh, that's a natural fit. They're going to be best friends. Nope, didn't happen for me, won't happen for Jordan. Now, when it comes time to do the drawing, one of the things that I do is I like to go right into the layout. Some people, some artists like to write it out as a prose script first and then go back in and draw it. But I do my story arc and I draw it out, and then I put the words in and I move the words around to see who's going to say what and where. And then I just go right into drawing. So this is an actual sketch, original sketch for doing New Kid. And you see in the upper left here, everyone's favorite teacher, Miss Roll, but I don't even know what she looks like yet. I just kind of loosely sketched her in. So she says, oh, that solves it. Please find a seat, Drew, and tell us a few more things about yourself. Well, I live by Yankee Stadium with my grandmother, and my favorite subject is math. And then he looks over and he sees Jordan staring, and Jordan waves, and Drew goes, "Hey, what's up?" He waves back, and then he fist bumps with the little angel that follows him around. Jackpot, I know, right? But that seemed a little too easy. And I wanted to show kids that, not everyone makes friends first day of school, or adults make friends first day of work. It can be as hard as learning calculus, right? So when I redid it, so this is what I do the entire book like. I show it to my agent, I show it to my editor. Once it's approved, I go ahead and make it final like this. So Ms. Rawls says, "Great, that solves it. Please find a seat, Drew, and tell us a few things about yourselves." I live in the Bronx with my grandmother, and my favorite subject is math. So Drew is looking at the paper, Ashley is texting, and Jordan is staring. And then he senses that his spidey sense goes off, and he turns, and Jordan turns away real quick because he's embarrassed. And now I don't need a lot of words. This is why I love doing graphic novels, because in a prose book, I would have to say, and Drew looked at the other kid and pondered, "Why is this guy staring at me? Does he want to be my friend? Is he afraid of me? Is he a bully?" That kind of thing. I just have a question mark with his confused look. And then he looks back and Jordan turns. So all for these panels with no words, but you really get what is going on with those two characters, and also how oblivious Ashley is because she is just texting the whole time. So here is one of the other pages. This is a page or two later. And this also went through a huge transformation. So this is Miss Rawl. Excellent. Next. My name is Liam. I've been here since kindergarten. I have a younger brother and older sister. And I'm Jordan's guide. Great, Jordan. Hi, I'm Jordan. I live in Washington Heights and I love to draw. Great, next. And here's everyone's favorite Alexandra, who kind of stole the book in a lot of ways. And she says, "Hello, I'm Mr. Honey Bunny, and this is my best friend Alexandra. We live on the Upper West Side and love to make puppets." Next. "My name is Graham, and my dad works on Wall Street, and he just bought me this new Apple Watch." See? So this was okay. 5 panels, sort of the same size. It's all right. But for seeing something like this with Alexandra, I definitely think that she needed to make a grand entrance. And the other thing is, I didn't want the kids lined up in their desks like this. I wanted them more. My son's school had the Harkness method, where they're all kind of around one big table or a U shape, something like that. Um, and I didn't want to have all the kids introduce themselves, so I changed it to just having the new kids, right? And now watch how I go from this page to bum ba 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 boom, right? So now you see all the kids around Miss Rawls' back, Drew's body language, arms folded, Ashley still texting, Jordan okay, Liam a little nervous. There is boy Alex, Colin leaning back in his chair, Andy, who always wants to be different, sits backwards in his chair, Graham playing with his new Apple Watch, and girl Alex always folded up into a little ball of twisting. Excellent. Next, new students first. Hi, I'm Jordan. I live in Washington Heights. I love to draw. My name is Colin, and I like to play lacrosse, baseball, football, and soccer. And Andy is my guide. Welcome. Any other new students? Hello, I'm Mr. Honey Bunny, and this is my best friend Alexandra. We live in the Upper West Side and love to make puppets. So now I changed it from love to love, which makes it even more of her personality. So I signed my contract with HarperCollins. I remember finalizing it in January 2017. So my editor had the entire book like this. So now it was my job to take this and turn it into that. And I drew it from January, and I finished it in February of 2018, 13 months later. 13 months of literally 16-hour days. I might wake up at 9 a.m., come right down, start drawing, draw, have some lunch, draw, pet my dogs, draw, dinner, draw. And then literally sometimes it would be 2, 3, 4 a.m. And that was what I did for a year and a half. And apparently you liked it because I finished it in 2018. It did not come out for another year. It came out February of 2019. And then a year after that, January of 2020, I was awarded the John W. Newbery Medal for the most distinguished contribution to American literature for children. In almost 98 years of the Newbery Medal, this is the first graphic novel ever to win such a prestigious award. That same morning, about a half hour after I got the call for that, I was informed that I was the winner of the Coretta Scott King Author Award, making this the second book ever to win both of these prestigious awards. The first being But Not Buddy, which I read to my kids. And when I read it to my kids, when they were younger, I had no idea what these stickers ever were. I just knew that if they had both of those stickers, it meant that it was a pretty good book. So 10, 15 years later, I actually won both of those. So that is still shocking to me that a kid who never thought that I would read a 250-page book ends up drawing and writing one. And also someone that was told that comics will rot your brain ends up bringing balance to the force in a way, and in a lot of people's minds, even legitimizing the graphic novel format as real reading and as a real book. Amazing stuff has happened since then. Well, even in the beginning, getting a quote from Jeff Kenney. Funny, sharp, and totally real. Jordan Banks is a kid everyone will be talking about. Jeff Kenney, author of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, one of my kids' favorite series ever. And in addition to the awards, the critical awards, I've also gotten, fan, uh, just love from fans. So actually being #1 on the New York Times bestseller list in their graphic books and manga. And so that has been really amazing. And I'm going to ask you who can read that. Okay, this is in Albanian. So I believe it's in 7 languages now. Last I checked, it was Albanian, Romanian, Korean, I believe Chinese, Greek, and Iranian. Yep, and I think Japanese as well. So those are my 7. Not Spanish or French yet, which is very odd. And that brings us up to When School Gets Real, You Can Still Show the World You're a Class Act. Sequel to the Newbery Medal winner, New Kid, Jerry Craft, New York Times best-selling author. The end. And that is kind of the presentation. So I have some really tough questions coming my way. So I am prepared for them. I've been studying all night, and then we'll take some audience questions and maybe I'll even do a little drawing. So how was that?
Oh, that was amazing. Thank you
Sure.
so much, Jerry. Yeah, it was really interesting to hear your process. And I loved the side-by-side comparisons too, to something that you were thinking of being the first draft and then how you decided to change it, not wanting to make it look too easy and you want it to be more realistic. And I definitely can see that when I was reading it as well, that some
Yeah.
of the moments were so true.
You
It's
know
not
what?
always easy.
Because you know, ideally I could take a year to kind of write it. Um, and with Class Actor, with New Kid, when it won the awards and became really popular, my editor uh, gently persuaded me to see if I could do Class Act even faster. So
Hmm.
instead of 13 months, I did it maybe 8 months.
Oh,
And when I tell you, I'm actually going to look at my calendar because I don't believe it. Um, one of the things with the quarantine, because I had trips planned, I was doing school visits in Beijing, in Dubai. I was going all over the world. So with nowhere to go, all I could do was stay home and draw. So when I tell you there were many a night where I went to bed at 6 a.m. because I literally drew the whole night. I handed Class Act in June 16th of this year.
wow. It just goes to show you how quick the process is. That's
Yeah, how
crazy.
quick it can be.
Yeah.
Yeah, because obviously they wanted to strike while the iron was hot. But obviously I could not hand it in until I was every bit as confident that it was as good, if not better, than New Kid.
Right.
And once I was confident, then I handed in. And a few months later, it's in people's hands already. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah. Right
See,
here.
like the ink might still be wet.
Yeah. And that smell of a new book too.
Right.
Gabrielle and I couldn't stop talking about that when it came in. We love that smell.
Yeah. No, it's unbelievable how fast they did this. And to even have a graphic novel in back to back years
Right.
is amazing. I am working on book three, but it is not coming out next year. So do not
Oh.
look for it next
Okay.
year.
Oh, well, we'll be anxiously awaiting it because I got through Class Act so fast because I was so involved with the characters that I couldn't wait to see what happened next. And I think you did a great job, even though you were saying it went much faster. Class Act was a
Oh, good.
wonderful
Good.
graphic
Yeah,
novel.
I really had a sense of like I know the characters so well now. Um, like you can ask me their favorite foods, you can ask me their brothers and sisters' names, so it makes it easier. But also, getting feedback from kids and like I met so many kids that were like, how come there's no one like me in your book?
Mm,
And I was so focused on doing a different style of African American protagonist that I didn't realize that kids were looking for them. So I had,
right,
oh, my family's from India. How come there's no one from India in your book? And I was like, okay, I'll put someone from India in your book. You
right.
know, how come there's no one? So I met a girl with alopecia, so I put her in.
Oh, wow.
I
There's a,
noticed. I
right.
noticed in Class Act. Yeah.
Yep. There's a kid with vitiligo. Because I now really take seriously that how I was looking for representation my whole life in books and never saw it, that kids are desperate for that. And I wanted to do a book that they will hug, and I think with New Kid and Class Act, I have seen enough kids hugging the book
Oh,
where it gives me goosebumps and I realize I've done the right thing. And it also gives me, the utmost determination to do a book three. But talk about pressure. Whew.
Yeah. No, definitely. But well said. Well said. Speaking to the diversity of the books, that was really good. So, for my first question, and you touched upon this a little bit. First of all, I loved seeing the sketches from when you were younger. That was so cool, and it kind of reminded me of Jordan's sketches. Because it was again, you do relate to him. So in many interviews, you have mentioned that you use your background of growing up in Washington Heights and attending a private school as inspiration in your stories, as well as your sons having had the same experience. Any specific moments in New Kid or Class Act that you drew from your own personal experience? I mean, you showed us the brownstone, that you grew up in, so you definitely took from that. But any other personal experiences?
Well, definitely the whole thing of like riding the bus, and there was no such thing as the term code switching back then, so I didn't know I was doing it. But going from Washington Heights to Riverdale, and trying to look cool in certain areas so no one picked on you, but then trying not to look too cool where people would think that they had to watch you, that kind of thing. So that was definitely a lot. A lot of stuff came from my sons because my sons went to a private school in Connecticut,
Oh.
and that's where like the Vineyard Vines came in. The It's Not Pink, It's Salmon, um, calling Black students by the wrong name, calling Black teachers by the wrong name. So I went 4 years um, at Fieldston, but then like 13 years of being a parent, watching my sons go through that. So that's why I think that there was such um, detail that I was able to capture, just because there was just a lot of stuff that I saw, again, both as a student, as a kid, but also as a dad, as a mature adult. So that's why I think I really got a lot of stuff right.
Nice, thank you.
Hmm.
And as you said earlier, I am now mesmerized by you drawing.
Yeah, see, I warned them. I said, when I start drawing, don't be surprised if you forget your questions. I warned you.
No, it's really awesome to see the whole process kind of play out in front of our eyes. So thank you for that. But I just wanted to address earlier, you said that teachers kind of made you feel that comic books would rot your brain.
Yep.
And as a librarian, this is, an interesting thing for me because I often hear parents try to discourage their kids from reading graphic novels. So I just was curious what you would say to parents and educators today who might still be a little bit reluctant in handing over a graphic novel to their children or students.
Well, what's so interesting is, I mean, I have written prose novels, and when I tell you that I have probably put more into writing New Kid and Class Act because I have the visual component that I need to, line up so that everything is just perfect. And how does this happen? How does this? So I probably work harder at doing the story arcs and the character design and the all that kind of stuff. There is a teacher, no, a bookstore owner, and she was at her store, and a dad and his son came in, and the kid said, "Hey, Dad, can I get a graphic novel?" And he goes, "No, I want you to get a real book." And she said, "Oh, sir, I'll have you know that a graphic novel just won the coveted Newbery Prize, And then he goes, "Oh, okay, well, in that case, get whatever you want." you know. So, but I also hear schools that will confiscate graphic novels, so that, there's still a lot of work to be done. And in both Class Act and New Kid, I kind of poke fun of graphic novels and call them not real books and things like that. Just to kind of show, but like my sons, are big, even now at 22 and 20, right? They were always big Xbox fans. So I subscribed to Game Informer magazine. And you can believe that whenever that new issue came out, if they wanted to sit down and read about the new Sonic game or the new Star Wars game or something like that, but it was reading. So anytime you can voluntarily, a kid will voluntarily read a book, to me is an amazing feat. And one of the cool things about graphic novels is that there are actually adults who have a hard time reading graphic novels, because if you didn't grow up on comics, and it's bizarre to me because I did, but there are teachers who are like, I don't know how to read this. And meanwhile, a reluctant reader who has never finished a book the whole time that they've known each other, oh, Miss So and so, here, you have to read this book tomorrow so we could talk. And it's like, wait a minute, you are challenging me to read a book? And they will have read it 2 times or 3 times. So it kind of really levels the playing field also, to have these reluctant readers. How often do you see a reluctant reader say, I read a Newbery award-winning book, you know? So I just think that some adults need to kind of, take it into account a little bit more, and not be as judgmental.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that, because I always love to encourage the kids who come in and ask for graphic novels. I love to encourage them to keep reading them, just because I do feel like it's such a great thing to have today, that there are so many graphic novels out there, and it's just awesome. So thank you.
Thank you.
And we're always learning too, about how there's so many different modalities of learning, and so many children are visual learners. So graphic novels assist them with that as well. It gives them an image in their heads while they're reading. And that kind of goes into my next question, so it's perfect. So your art is super dynamic in your graphic novels. You give us close-ups, long shots, bird's eye views, and other fun angles. Why did you want to tell this story in the format of a graphic novel rather than prose? What did you do with your art that added another dimension? And you kind of answered this in the beginning when you were saying how you drew the little question mark with Drew. In prose, you have to be like, Drew felt unsure. Yeah. But
So
could you tell us a
when
little
you
more?
see Jordan going into the cafeteria, and he is literally the size of a milk carton because he feels so small because he's lonely, there's a lot to take away from that, and again, I know that, again, even as an older reader, sometimes when I would see too many words on a page, it would kind of gray out a little bit, and it's just like, I don't want to read that. But I try to really add enough different layers, even the humor, right? So the humor was very important, and I hope this isn't a question that you're about to ask, but
It might have been.
okay. So I'm going to ruin this potential question. The humor, I felt that when you're talking about race and class, which are two things that people really don't like talking about, especially from an African American perspective, the book could have been seen as angry, in the same way that when Miss Rawl finds Jordan's sketchbook, she accuses him of it being a polemic. And I just really wanted to show that by having the humor in it, that it wouldn't seem like I was blaming anyone or angry at anyone, because I think it would have been very easy for me and the book to be pigeonholed.
See that?
Yes,
Yeah.
and that actually goes into the question that I was about to ask. So, with the humor that you kind of weaved throughout the book, I was just curious, is that something that came naturally to you as you were working on New Kid, or did you feel that you needed to go back and kind of lighten the mood every so often?
You know, from way back doing the Mama's Boys comic strip, for some reason, I always gravitated to doing uh, tough subjects, but using humor. And I think a lot of it came from when I was a kid, and having things like Fat Albert or Schoolhouse Rock or Multiplication Rock. You know, to this day, if I am, you know, writing and I need to know what a conjunction is, I sing the conjunction junction, what's your function? You know? And that to me is like, wow, there is real learning
Yes.
when you are doing something like that, you know? So I just feel like I have such an audience and a way to teach kids. But you know, I've also taught a lot of teachers, and you know, like there was a librarian who tweeted at me that she felt like I missed the boat because when Miss Brickner, the librarian, was like, "Oh, you know, here are these books," that she was like, "Oh, well, it really should have been her stepping up and showing the power of a librarian and that." And then I had so many other librarians come to me and say, "You know what? I am so glad that you did that because I was that librarian. Like I had a kid come in and say, 'Hey, I really love The Hate You Give. Do you have something else like that?'" And she thought it meant, you know, another book that had like, you know, gangs and shooting and stuff like that. And so she gave the girl the book, and the girl really didn't like it. She's like, you know what? She didn't want another book like that. She wanted a book that had a smart female protagonist that could use her brains and do this and do that. And when I read New Kid, I realized that I had failed her, even with my good intentions, but I had failed her, and I learned a valuable lesson from that. And that was just amazing for me to hear that I changed a librarian or a teacher. You changed librarian, you changed the world because they changed the kids.
Thank you. Well said. Well said. Well, now we're going to go into some questions from the chat, but I do want to say, you know, we have all felt like Jordan Banks at some point in our lives. Your work speaks to African-American kids, immigrant kids, kids who don't belong, and many adults. You've mentioned in several interviews that not only kids reach out to you, but also principals, teachers, and parents. And now you just said librarians. So we thank you so much for being, you know, such a great influence that we can pass on to our patrons, our students, our kids.
Thank
So
you.
thank you so much. All right. So one fun question that I saw right away, and I'm kind of interested too, came from Jen. She's one of our librarians.
Hey,
Can
Jen.
you tell us who the main character will be in book 3?
You know, so I am still, I don't want to say fighting with my editor, but there is still a lot that we are ironing out. I know kind of the idea that they're not completely sold on yet. And I'm like, dude, if you can't trust me by now,
Yeah.
you
Come on.
know, yeah. So I just go around. Yeah, I'll show you before I hang up. But like, you know, hey, come on. I think, you know, give me a little slack here. I think I got you. So on one hand, you know, going by uh, how the first two books have gone, you know, there are people that are like, oh, well, of course, Liam has to go on. But then it's the last book because they don't want any more. They just want 3 books and move on to something else.
Mm.
So, you know, would I need a group shot to kind of say goodbye or what? But you will have the characters you love. There will be Liam and Drew and Jordan and Alexandra, who ended up becoming one of my favorites. Um, so all that to say is I don't know yet. Sorry.
I see another question here that I thought was really interesting. Amanda here asks, how did you decide what books to feature as chapter titles? I had
Oh,
a lot of fun looking through as I was reading Class Act, noticing that through every chapter. So how did you decide that?
so with that, so in book 1, I just wanted, I kind of did that for the adults because obviously no kid is going to get a Eat, Pray, Love reference. You know, I don't know how many kids are digging. Um, who was that?
Elizabeth Gilbert.
No. Oh man, it was right on the tip of my tongue, and I forgot. But someone can chat. Um, you know, so that was this. Because I always loved books where you could like no, not books, but like taking my sons to see like Shrek, and they would laugh hysterically at some parts, and I would laugh hysterically at other parts, and it was just a great family movie. So I definitely wanted to do something where adults would laugh. So that's why, the West Side Story and Julia Roberts. That's who I think that
Oh,
Oh.
I see.
and that kind of thing, right? So when it came time to do the next one, I did realize that some of those movies were a little obscure, and I think I wanted to add some solidarity, because I don't I don't consider myself like competing with Raina Telgemeier, uh, or Victoria Jameson or Jerry Krzyzewska. I think that the better one of us does, the better all of us do. You know, and what Raina has done, like I said, to just almost make this an industry. So I definitely wanted to have her. Jeff Kinney, who gave me the cover blurb for book one, I wanted to have him. And then I just went through some of my favorite ones, and then some that these horrible, horrible puns came into mind, and I wanted to use those too. Forgive me for the Life of Pi one, but hey, gotta do what you gotta do. Yeah, some of them are definitely cringeworthy, but you know,
But you added the humor too, like you said. That's
yeah,
important.
absolutely.
Yeah,
All
to
right, so
even
I think I'm
uncomfortable
finished with this drawing
situations.
right here. What do you think?
I love it. It's so cool to see you start from the beginning and then add the features and the colors as you
Yeah,
go.
so
Yeah,
So
they
what?
just really come to life. It's great.
Yep.
yeah.
So that's how I basically do the entire book. I will sketch it out and then I'll go in like that. And one of the cool things about just coming in and doing it digital now, for young artists, don't feel like you have to draw digital. Do whatever's comfortable. I still draw paper and pencil. You don't have to draw anime. You don't have to draw this. You don't have to draw a new kid. But one of the things I do like is, for example, if I have this and I decide that I want Drew to tilt his head, right?
Oh.
I can actually come in here and manipulate it, something like that,
That's
Oh my
amazing.
God.
you know. Or if he's laughing and I want to go back like that, he could be looking at Jordan like that, So I have a
Right.
lot more flexibility, and that's why I'm not limited to, even when I hand something in to my editor, if he approves it, you know, back in the old days when I would have had to do an entirely new drawing, now I can say, oh, you know what? I can just have him nod his head. So how cool is that?
Right.
And it changes the whole feel of this. Now it's like he's looking at it like, oh, that's my buddy, you know?
Yeah, the digital definitely gives you that ability to just play with it.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
All right.
All right, we have so many great questions, everyone, and I apologize for not being able to read everybody's just because we're a little out of time. But I'll ask one more. This is from a school librarian, and she has three to fifth graders. Her three to fifth grade students enjoyed New Kid. One of my students asked, "Was it difficult as an author of color to get a book that talked about racial issues published?"
Absolutely. And that was why I self-published for so long.
Mm,
And after a while, because the rejection letters I got were so awful, that I gave up, and I literally never thought that I would be traditionally published again. So really, wasn't until 2014 when Andre Pinkney from Scholastic asked me to illustrate the Zero Degree Zombie Zone that I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I can. You know, maybe there is hope. So this is the book I illustrated for them.
Oh, cool.
But then I have done, you know, this is one that I may turn into a graphic novel when I'm all done. This is The Offenders Saving the World While Serving Detention that I wrote with my sons. So I have to have their picture when they were in middle school. I do want to show you this since you guys have been so nice.
Oh, wow.
Oh my
That's
gosh,
so
that's
cool.
So that is the actual Newbery Medal.
That's awesome.
And it
Wow.
is an actual medal. So I will take it out. Okay. So, yep. So it is an actual medal.
That's
Wow.
awesome to see. Wow.
Amazing.
Barbara signed on to make sure she could see that.
Yeah.
Barbara's like, hey, wait a minute.
Oh, look at that.
Yep.
Wow.
Is it heavy?
It is heavy. Yeah, it's really solid.
Wow.
So I was thinking about either putting it on like the Vision or maybe like Tony Stark and Iron Man.
I would show that off all the time.
A question that I do want to answer. I actually have a deal with Spring Hill Entertainment, which is run by Maverick Carter and LeBron James. And we are discussing a movie deal with Universal Studios.
Oh, that's so
That's
cool.
amazing.
For a live action New Kid movie.
Oh, that would be
Wow.
fantastic.
Yep.
Oh, congratulations.
thank
That's
you.
so
Now,
exciting.
That's
We're
great.
talking to directors and writers, and like that whole process is starting. So that's really, really cool.
Oh, thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
And I definitely welcome you to read the chat too. You've got some great comments from our readers, you
Yep,
know,
that's
from
why
so many young kids.
someone asked about a TV show like Fat Albert. So
Yeah, yeah.
okay.
Oh, thank you so much, Jerry. It's been a pleasure having you here with us tonight. What an honor
I'm checking out
getting
the
to
drawing
interview.
up there. Right.
Oh, look at that.
Look at that. And see, that was me. That was just like, I just
Oh,
love
that's great.
all the time. Like, even as an adult, you know, I'd go somewhere with my kids, they'd be like, sir, would your kids like crayons to draw on the table mats? No, but I'll take some. Yeah.
Oh, it was
Yeah.
that's so cool. Thank you so much for sharing your stories, your advice, and inspiring the young kids that came on today. It was an honor.
Okay, can I just say something with Amanda? So Amanda's like, they better not ruin the story turning it into a movie. So I'm an executive producer of the movie. So supposedly I will have a lot of input. And with LeBron James and Maverick Carter and the people from Spring Hill who really love the book, and the director, his kids read the book even before he read the book. And they're like, Dad, you got to do this. And I think they will be so mad at him if he messes it up. So I think the team that we have around us, yeah, so Amanda, I will do my best.
And now we're all going to be so excited for that.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll show it at the library. It'll be a really big deal.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that'll be so cool. Thank you for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
Oh, well, thank you again for a wonderful evening with you, Jerry. And for our patrons, thank you so much for coming on tonight on this lovely Friday evening. And yes, let me just end the recording here.